Yes. We're rolling, I think. Welcome to this webinar today. My name is Michael Funch, and I am going to moderate today's event on climate mitigation and adaptation in the Nordics. This is the first in a series of events on how to work with the SDGs and implement Agenda 2030 at the local level. Today we'll focus on SDG13, climate action, and then there will be a series of other events following this. The participants out there, you're a good mix of municipalities and regions, academics, NGOs, and international organizations from the Nordics and Baltics, and even some from farther away. So we're really happy to have you with us here today, and thank you for joining. We looked at the sign-ups, and it looks like there's a good spread. It's like 50-50 between organizations and individuals who have good experiences and are quite advanced in working with the SDGs, and the other half are only just starting. So I think this could be a really useful learning forum, both for the advanced and the beginners. We hope so in any case. To introduce this series, I would like to welcome Nora Sanchez-Gassen, who is Senior Research Fellow at Nordregio, where we are today. Nordregio is organizing this on behalf of the Nordic Council of Ministers. So Nora will say a few words. Welcome.
Yes, hello everyone. A warm welcome also from me to this seminar series. My name is Nora Sanchez-Gassen, and I work as a Senior Research Fellow here at Nordregio, and I have organized this webinar series together with a lovely group of colleagues. We host this webinar series on behalf of the Nordic Council of Ministers, and we hope that it will be especially useful to all of you who work for municipalities or for regions in the Nordic region and beyond, and in general for everyone who works with the SDG implementation at local level. Here at Nordregio, we've worked with the 2030 agenda since 2018, and since then we have interviewed quite a few municipalities about their work. And one thing that has come up again and again in those conversations is that municipalities would really appreciate more opportunities for knowledge sharing. So we've heard that municipalities and also regions are very interested in hearing on what goes on elsewhere in the Nordic region, what works well, what does not work so well, and what can we learn from each other. And we really hope that this webinar series can meet some of this demand, that this can really be a platform for joint discussion and learning. We will have 6 webinars in total. 2 are now happening in December, then there will be 2 in January and 2 in February. They all have different topics, so different topics in how you can work with the SDGs in different areas. Today we talk about climate change with Michael. Next week we have the topic of digitalization, and in the new year we will talk about topics like gender equality, for example, and how to measure progress in working with the SDGs. If you're interested in knowing more, you can go to our website. There we have the program for the events, and we keep updating them on a continuous basis as we confirm our speakers. And there you can also register for upcoming events if you haven't done that already. But today we talk about climate change, and I'm looking very much forward to hear from our speakers. And Michael will introduce them soon.
Yes, thank you, Nora. And yes, as Nora says, stay tuned, and we will also send you information after the event with additional links to reports and other knowledge produced from the Nordic network and the Nordic Council of Ministers institutions. So stay tuned for that. But today we'll talk about SDG 13, which is take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts. And if you look at the specific goals under there are 5, and they are strengthen resilience and adaptive capacity, integrate climate change measures into national policies, improve education and awareness raising, adopt the UNFCCC framework, well, the whole climate package, so to speak, so I guess that goes without saying. And then finally, at the end, promote mechanisms for raising capacity, including women, youth, and local and marginalized communities. So this is actually the first mention of the local level in these goals here. But in fact, the local level is where the real change happens. And that's what we're going to focus on today. And I'm not just saying that sort of out of the blue. I have backup from Guterres, the Secretary General of the UN, who at the C40 summit in Copenhagen last year said that cities are where the climate battle will be won or lost. So he mentioned cities, and of course, a lot of you will be from rural communities, but the main point here is that local action is where it really counts and what is needed and where we can make a difference. And I hope that we can make a small contribution today to do this. To begin, before we go to the speakers, we would like to do our first Menti. You may have seen in the chat or in your invitation that we are going to work with surveys during the presentations. So if you have menti.com ready, we are ready for the first question, which is, and the login is 11.15.826. It's also seen on the screen. And the first question is, what do you focus on most in your climate-related work? Is it mitigation or adaptation? So is it reducing emissions, or is it just getting ready for the inevitable? Or do you focus equally on both? So we'll see what comes up here. So far, people are focusing on mitigation or both. Some are still getting into Menti. We're still warming up. Looks like mitigation. And that's also the impression I got actually from speaking to our three speakers, which I'll introduce in a second. Which was in a way, to me, that was kind of a surprise, but I guess that shows you how little I know about climate work at the local level, because I thought maybe, well, we have to get used to it, you know, we just have to adapt. But it seems like you're hanging on in there. You're actually really working to change things. Yeah, I think we can say it's a good win for climate mitigation so far. So that's a good background for our presentation, because I think a lot of our speakers will address that issue. And we have three speakers lined up for you today. Pauliina Jalonen from the National Association of Municipalities in Finland, who will give us an overall introduction. And the national associations of municipalities in the Nordic countries were actually part of the early planning of these events. So we're really happy to have Pauliina with us today. Then after her, we have Ari Alatossava from the city of in Finland, who will give more of a rural perspective. And finally, Astrid Ståledotter Landstad from Oslo, who will give an urban perspective, but also talk more specifically about working with climate budgets, so introducing some tools for us to learn from. So first of all, I would like to introduce Pauliina. Are you there, Pauliina?
Yes, can you hear me fine?
Yes, we can hear you. Pauliina, climate change expert from Kuntaliitto Kommunförbundet in Finland. Kuntaliitto has been involved in climate work heavily since the 90s, and also worked a lot with Nordic knowledge sharing. And actually, Pauliina is starting up a new initiative on climate leadership coaching for Finnish municipalities. So Pauliina, we are looking forward to hearing more from you about all your exciting initiatives. So please.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for the invitation to take part in this webinar. And good afternoon to everyone. So I'm Pauliina Jalonen, and I work as a climate policy advisor for the Kuntaliitto. And I work both with mitigation and adaptation issues. And can I get my slides, please?
Coming up.
Yes. So just as before, I'm going to discuss about the work that how we support in the association the climate work of the Finnish municipalities. And but before going to that, I'm just explaining the acronym that it's from our official name, the Association of Finnish Local and Regional Authorities. I think there has been some decisions made to shorten and simplify it into the AFM as meaning the Association of Finnish Municipalities. Please, the next slide. So just shortly about the background. So we have, in Finland, there are 310 cities and municipalities, and they are all our members. And we also work with other local actors, such as regional councils, local and regional actors, such as regional councils, hospital districts, different joint municipal authorities, as well as some companies like the small energy companies that are owned by the local government, but who are not members in the interest organization for energy organization. So they are the ones that we also provide services for. And we have roughly 200 experts in our association. I'm the only one working full-time with the climate change, but of course, many of my colleagues work with climate issues as well. At the moment, I'm currently discussing with a colleague of mine who's working with the local democracy issues, that what kind of we are looking at the climate democracy, and what are the questions for us, and are there something that we could do in terms of that issue. Next slide, please. So there are three sort of core tasks that we work with. The interest representation is, of course, the main or most important for us. But we also work with municipalities in co-development with different challenges that they are facing, and then we provide expert services. And especially for me in climate issues, I work with the co-development, and more increasingly with the interest representation as well. And this is something when we do work closely with our Nordic sister organizations as well, because they have the similar working environment and they work with the similar issues than we do. So it's really fruitful cooperation, and we really good to share the experiences and point of views with them. But they also have some other focus in some cases, like I think the Swedish SKR is I'm not sure, but I think they are not working directly with on climate issues with the municipality networks like we do. But otherwise, I think we are looking this sort of we are similar association profile as such. Next slide, please. So don't worry, I'm not going too far going through all the history, but just to sort of as a background to why we are doing and working the way we are doing, what we are doing now. It's good to look a little bit back to the history. So basically, the climate issues came into the local policy agenda, local environmental agenda in 19th, and that was at the time after the Rio conference that ICLEI started the cities for climate change protection campaign, and based on that work, we also established our first national local climate network in 1997, and this is also the same time when the sort of first climate programs were made. The first one was from the Helsinki metropolitan area from 1995, but also the first wave of sustainable development from that time, and especially the local agendas that were the sort of main tool for municipalities to work with the sustainable development, also incorporated the global aspects of environmental challenges into the sort of local policy work. But then next slide, please. That one. Yes, thank you. So there has happened a lot of after that. And as you see, we established the first local climate network in 1997, and this is the situation now. So there is sort of really a great number of different networks that municipalities are working at. So I'm not going to go through all of these, don't worry. I'm just pinpointing one, which is Hinku Forum. You can see there there's 75 municipalities that was established in 2008 with 5 municipalities and quite small municipalities at the time. But what they did, I think that they also sort of raised the ambition level of the local climate work, because they introduced the carbon neutrality concept into the as a sort of climate target for municipalities. So all these different municipalities have different approaches, different kind of working. They have different kind of profiles, and I think I'm not even covering all the international ones, because Helsinki and Espoo, the biggest cities, have their own networks as well where they are. But this is just to showcase that there has been a loads going on, and there still is, and sort of I think that the one reason for the great number of networks is that there hasn't been that many structures that are steering the local climate work. So there has been a real need for collaboration and learning from each other, and that's where the networks come handy. Next slide, please. Just before going to focus on our association's work, just another feature of local climate work in Finland is that there has been really great change in the level of ambition during last few years. And as you can see from the slogans, everyone is trying to beat the municipality next door with I think the Lahti is the first one with driving to carbon neutrality by 2025. But of course, it's not. This is the political ambition, and I think it's good. But if of course it's the action that matters. But just as just to sort of pinpoint how fast the change has happened, is that now we have roughly half of the Finnish population living in a municipality that is targeting for carbon neutrality by 2030 latest. And with Finnish government, we have 2035 target. But in autumn 2018, so 2 years ago, this was only 25% of the Finnish population. So there has been great many municipalities that has been setting new, more ambitious climate targets in last 2 years. Next slide, please. So with so much going on, we have had a discussion at what's our role as an association, and how can we better support the municipalities in their climate work, and we decide that there is obviously no need for our own network, and instead there's more need for sort of creating and supporting the communication and interaction between and over the different networks. And we still have also municipalities that are not member of any networks, and they are doing climate work, and they might be really ambitious on there and very much forerunners, but they want to do it on their own terms, and and that's what we are respecting, but we also trying to provide a platform for them to sort of participate on some of the activities. So basically, we are not only taking part in different kind of discussion, but also trying to offer a platform for events and discussions to take place, or sort of have more interaction between different actors that are supporting or are doing local climate work. But the sort of main principle for us is to look at the sort of issues that are not covered. So we have been providing let's say that like carbon sinks or compensation is one of these sort of areas where there's a lot of local interest too, but there are not clear models how to integrate or count carbon sinks into the local climate targets. So we have been organizing events where we bring together research and municipalities together to discuss the sort of the status of scientific knowledge and what are the needs of municipalities. So we are, of course, we don't have any expertise on carbon sinks, but and it's not something that we are going to focus on, but it's something that needs to be raised as an issue. So we usually take those issues on our agenda. And then climate change adaptation is something interestingly not covered by any of those many networks. So this is something that we have been looking at more closely and trying to develop it more systematically. So we did a survey on the status of local climate change adaptation early this year, summer this year, and just publishing a guide for preparedness for climate change and for climate change or preparedness planning for climate change in municipalities. So this is something that we will be working on as long as there is no other organization taking over the issue. But then, as I mentioned, that we are working with the co-development, and this is something that we have been also looking at, is that what kind of services there are and who are being served by other organizations. So we are not we don't have detailed expertise on all the climate issues, and most of those are covered by the different expert organizations and support organizations. So we looked at that there sort of municipal leaders, both official and local local elected politicians, are not really covered by the networks or the other organizations. So basically we have like 9,000 locally elected officials who also need sort of like basic info on the role of municipality in climate change and sustainability transition. So we've been providing sort of different just basic information materials for them. But then we have started this new Ilmava climate leadership training program that's starting early next year. Next slide, please. So this is a new concept for us as well, and just developing it on the way that we go. We have been asked for the different management tools for integrating climate issues into the general management and general leadership of municipalities. So we are now developing those tools as well. But basically the purpose of the coaching is to help mayors and other leaders of municipalities to implement their own local climate goals. And we're doing the coaching together with the City of Lahti, and this is connected to the next year's European Green Capital year. So next slide, please. Next slide.
Pauliina, you have 2 minutes left.
Yeah, I'm just coming up. I'm not going through this, but I'm just as a part of this coaching program, we were planning to have some cooperation together with the Nordic municipalities, and we actually have a project proposal for the Nordic Ministry of Council on the cooperation. But well, due to the COVID situation, I don't think we're going to be able to run that through. But the reason for this was that there's several Finnish municipalities that has proposed that there should be more cooperation and with the Nordic municipalities on climate action, and that there is a really good field for learning from each other and be together forerunners on the local climate policy issues. But as we don't know how seriously this proposal has been made, so we sort of made this additional part to our program, and sort of thought that this would be sort of first test to see if there is a real need and real interest to increase the cooperation somehow. And next slide, please. I think that's the last one. Yeah, just as a sort of, I mentioned that the interest representation is taking more of our time, but this is also something I would like to see that we are working more closely with the municipalities, is that the climate policy regime at the moment is developing very fast. There's great number of different initiatives coming both from the EU, but from the national level as well, from our government program, and how these different initiatives and legislation and all are forming sort of supportive climate policy regime for the municipalities. This is something I think we would really need more work together with diverse municipalities. And last slide is, I think that's thank you. That's all from me. Thank you.
And you mentioned that you put in an application to the Nordic Council Ministers for a Nordic learning opportunity.
Yeah.
So why don't we test it right away? If you go to your Menti, we could do a quick sondage here and see a big survey whether people think that's a good idea. So the Finnish Municipal Association has plans to establish more Nordic cooperation. To what degree would that be useful to the audience? Let's see what people are saying. At least we're staying in the good half for the moment. See little dots coming in here. Yeah, I think you have a good case building there, Pauliina. So
yeah, thank you. It looks really good.
Surprised, actually. You should continue your plans.
Yeah, it seems that it's. Yeah, thank you for this feedback as well. It's really good to get some feedback from the Nordic partners.
So you said you shelved the plans for now, but they're ready to pull out after.
Yeah. It's just to see what's going on with the COVID and how we can what's the most. Of course, we can always organize another webinar, but I think it would be more fruitful to have face-to-face discussions and meetings. But we'll see what happens.
I think people
definitely will keep up with this one.
People are getting hungry to meet in real life, actually, I'm pretty sure. What would you say is your biggest challenge when you work now as a national organization? You say that 50% of Finnish municipalities have a goal to be climate neutral by, was it 2050 or?
2030.
2030 already, sorry. Yeah. So how are you going to get to 100?
Yeah, that is our challenge. I think we have actually made we were partnering with this research project where they were looking at the climate attitudes of local leaders, and it was obvious that it's very diverse, that there are still like very significant part of local leaders that do not see the relevance or the effectiveness of local climate work in a global policy regime, policy as a part of global action.
We have one quick question for you here before we move to the next speaker. Is someone wants to know how the AFLRA network works with other Nordic municipal associations?
Yes.
So I guess you touched upon it already. So if you get really, really briefly, if you can.
Yes, we have this sort of environmental working group that we meet twice a year to discuss different current issues. But we also work on a EU issues separately because they are usually quite common for us. So we share our opinions and knowledge on the issue. And with this network proposal, we actually were partnering with our Swedish and Norwegian sister organizations.
Great. So just need to get Denmark and Iceland going. Yeah. Thank you so much, Pauliina. You will return to us for the panel discussion at the end. I think I forgot to mention that, but of course we will have a panel discussion at the end, and you can also, as now, you can send questions as we go along, but also you will have a chance to ask questions during the panel discussion, and above all, you will have a chance to join our speakers in the mingle after we finish at 3:30 Central European Time. So there's a half an hour window for you to talk directly with the speakers. So please stay with us for that also, and maybe save your questions for that. But of course, if you have something that you want to urgently ask during the presentations, we can try to accommodate that also. But to warm up for our next speaker, which is Ari Alatossava, we would like to do a quick Menti also. And you're already answering what you want best, what is best, carrot or stick? So right now it's at 50-50. No, it's carrot coming up. Yes. Wow, you're really a positive crowd out there. You're all for incentives, positive incentives, not punishment and taxes and, well, okay, we have some taxes coming up there. Well, that's a good lead into the next speaker, because when I spoke to Ari preparing for this event, it struck me that that he was very much focusing on the carrots. And Ari is mayor of Ri, which is a Finnish town, and as you could see from Pauliina's presentation, it's quite a successful town in its work with climate change, and he's worked with many tools to bring down emissions in his area, which is a rural area. They've had outstanding results, and they're #1 emission reducer in Finland, actually. And what Ari said, that there are not so many sticks available for the local government, so you have to focus on the carrots. And it seems that, Ari, you are with us now. Seems you are very successful in that. So please, tell us more. We are ready with your presentation in a second.
Thank you very much for inviting me. This is the most common question today. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Ari Alatossava, and I'm the mayor of E-Town. And in the next slide, you can see a short presentation of E-Town. Short name, long history, 9,900 population, but we are part of the Oulu region, 250,000 inhabitants. So part of our town is a suburb area, but most of our area is a rural area. So we are both the density, the area where the population density is higher, but also the lower, and that's a bit challenging if you look at the actions, what you can do. And we are located 100 kilometers south from Arctic Circle. And I have to say that this morning it was -10 degrees and there is snow already. So everything is clean and white. And I think we want that it will be so during the next decades also. Please, next slide. First, I'm going to tell you something about our targets. and then about our program, and then some actions or cases, because we have done so much during the last 8 years. We started in 2012, and that I only highlight a few of them. And then something about human capacity or carrots, and then some learnings finally. So these 3 targets: no greenhouse gas emissions, no waste, no overconsumption. And these are not only our targets, because we are part of the network called Finnish Sustainable Communities. And these 3 targets are common to all of these cities and towns. I think that we need this kind of long-term targets. 2050, there's 30 years to come, but still we need those visions or missions why we do this work. So the targets are so that they are good for environment, they are good for businesses, and they are good for people. Because without all these, I think we cannot manage, or we cannot win this competition. Please, next slide. Our aim is to create carbon neutral community, decrease CO2 emissions and consumption, and attract clean investments, because clean investment and clean energy is I think it's a key point, one big key point here. But if you want to take people and businesses involved, you also need to you need to organize actions so that the incomes come to companies, local land and forest owners. And our aim is to create new businesses, jobs and inhabitants, and create wealth and prosperity for all of us. So once again, and there is this, how would I say, human side, or this is not just engineering work. I think it's more behavior, and if you can motivate people and businesses, you will get much better results. Next slide, please. We have, let's say, many targets, but this was our original target. 2012, we decided that we should decrease our emissions 80% by 2020, which is 30 years earlier than low carbon communities in Finland has set. Actually, I think that we didn't know exactly what kind of a way or what kind of actions it needs to go that target, but still it seems that we are on our way to reach that target. And one of our how would I say sayings or message is that the less emissions, the more savings. It means that if you do good for the environment, you can also do good for businesses. Next slide, please. Okay, how all this happened, or how did we make it happen? As you see in the picture, there is ordinary people, kids, and facilities, and planning process, and traffic issues. So once again, this is our normal life, and we can make decisions that are good for all of us. And I will show next slides, and I will show some features. Next slide, please. And the next slide is energy. steps to carbon neutral town. We have a program accepted by county council. It calls Research Wisdom Program. So it's a roadmap. There are 5 lines: clean energy production, community structure and traffic, consumption and circulation, food management, and clean water resources. And when we have this long-term target, 2050, it is not motivated enough to get people make and activate to environmental work. So you need more short-term targets. And in this slide, you can read some of them, what we have done to clean investments or public transportation or digital solutions, broadband network, food and that kind of stuff. I think the key message here is the leadership and political decisions. So public administration or local administration, we need leadership and we need political decisions. This cannot be only grassroots movement. If we can combine leadership and political decisions with grassroots movement, I think the result will be best. Next slide, please. First, clean energy production. In our town, private companies are producing 10 times more clean energy that is used, 10 times more, and it's all clean. It's hydro, wind, solar, and for heating is wood chips. So we do not use fossil fuels anymore for heating our houses or electricity production. Next, please. Community structure and traffic, as I mentioned earlier, it's a bit tricky in areas like us because we have a lot of rural areas and population density is low. So it's not so easy to organize public transportation system. But still we created a new plan for our town center to boost cycling and walking and other types of sustainable ways to traffic. But then we also need private traffic or private cars. And what we have done in the municipality is that we use electric vehicles, and we have invested charging points. So everyone who own car like this can use these charging points. And also these cars can rent, so everyone can rent this car in evenings and weekends when the employees of the town are not working. So this is part of the shared economy or circular economy. One way how to boost new technology. Please, next slide. And next slide.
2 minutes left, please.
Thank you. And the next slide, citizens and businesses. So I think that kids and businesses are driving forces of change. So the education system should be motivated to sustainable development. And we have done some projects. All the schools in our municipality are doing that kind of work. And together with the Entrepreneurs Association, we created a local label brand which support the environmental issues, but also we encourage people to use private services or local services. Next, please. Next slide, please. And to sum up, I think the previous one, please. To sum up these learnings, I think we need leadership and politics, as I already mentioned, and to combine environment and economy is very important, as I mentioned. People and businesses, so human resources, human capacity, best practices and examples. Town like E can be a good example, and we can share knowledge to everyone. Positive attitude. This is not a negative thing. This is a positive thing. We can do a lot of positive things. So the people are more motivated when it's positive. And my final message is that negawatt is the best watt, which means that if you do not consume, you don't need to produce. So in facilities or traffic or whatever, you can use less energy and less actions if you want, and if you select the best way to do it. The next slide, please. And I think we are a little bit surprised that the media coverage, the local, national, and international media coverage, what we have get. I think that there is an English phrase called "watch the walk, not the talk." I think these kind of actions we have done it's very interested. People are interested. Media is interested, and I think we should be, and people here are proud of this media coverage what we have got. So once again, positive impact. And finally, final slides. So this is the picture from my window last Saturday. So we hope that we can see that kind of winter pictures during the next decades also. So
well, you're not so far from Santa Claus, as I remember. I've actually been I've been to Rovaniemi to visit.
Yeah, that's true.
Thank you so much. We hope for more winter ahead, and thank you so much for this inspiring presentation, Ari. I really it's really impressive how you managed to create such a positive feedback loop. I would almost call it. It seems that you really get everyone on board, and I love this. The less emissions, the more savings, and all these sayings you have, because actually this is, people often think, oh, it's so expensive to bring down emissions and we can't afford it and it's going to wreck our economy, but you're actually proving them wrong. And in fact, the Nordic countries as a whole have been an example globally on exactly that issue, that we have shown that it is possible to get emissions down while still having growth. And I think you provide a really beautiful example of this. You mentioned that you need long-term targets, combining leadership and grassroots. I'm also wondering about how you use your colleagues. Now we heard from Pauliina that there were some, Finland alone, I think there were 15, no, not Finland, but 10 in Finland and 5 in Europe that they were a part of. How do you use these different networks yourself in your work?
I think that's very important, that we don't need to reinvent the wheel again and again and again, because as Pauliina mentioned, there is 310 municipalities in Finland, and almost everyone is some way involved in this process. And with these networks, we are talking about similar issues, similar targets, similar methods, similar actions, and we share information. That's I think that's the key, is the best practices and information sharing, between municipalities, because we are public organizations. We should not have any secrets.
So you believe in sharing. That's really great. That's what we're here for, of course, also. So again, stay tuned and join us again after at 2:30 for the mingling. You'll get a chance to ask more questions directly to Ari. But before we go to the next speaker, thank you for now, Ari. We'll join you again for the panel. Before we go to the next speaker, we have one more Menti coming up, which is actually linked to some of the things that Ari was discussing, namely, which policy areas do you think are most important to address at the local and regional levels when it comes to climate change? And I can say, we can see people coming up there that if you look at the global perspective, buildings actually account for 16% of emissions. Transport, which a lot of people are focusing on right now, accounts for 15% globally. And road traffic is 11% of that. Waste is only 4%, surprising to me at least, whereas agriculture and forestry make up 23%, and industrial production is a whopping 31%, so almost a third. So let's see what you would like to focus on. Yeah, transport is quite high, and as you could hear, it is a big issue. And then we have citizen engagement. It's also quite popular. That's great. After listening to Ari, maybe you got inspired. And green public procurement, of course, that's a tool that local authorities, as well as national authorities, of course, that's a really powerful tool for you to use to actually make sure that you boost the green economy yourselves. And as Ari was saying, you can do that in so many ways through energy efficiency initiatives, electricity and transport systems, and so on. So really, there is a lot to be gained. But yeah, it looks like we have a big focus on transport here, but also citizen engagement. I'm happy to see that, especially after hearing you, Ari. So let's move on to the next speaker, who can say some more about actually how you would measure all these different sectors and how you would measure these emissions. Astrid Ståledotter Landstad, welcome to you. Climate advisor at Oslo Municipality. Of course, as opposed to you come from a big city, but you're not going to talk so much about that. You're going to talk more about your work with climate budgets, because Oslo was the first, we think anyway, the first city in the world to introduce climate budget work at the municipal level. And through this, you've also worked with a number of regions and other municipalities in Norway, trying to teach them how to work with this. And you're going to talk a little bit about your focus on what is called Scope 1, which is direct emissions, but you're even more ambitious than that. You also want to start looking at indirect emissions, so emissions that maybe it's not directly under your control. So we're looking forward to hearing more about that from you, Astrid. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Michael. Can you hear me?
Yes. Loud and clear.
Thank you, and thank you for the introduction. I'm so impressed that you could spell my name, Ståledotter. That's nice. And thank you for inviting me to this event. I'm grateful to be here and to present for you something that I'm really excited about, the climate budget and how we can use it as a tool to achieve climate goals. As Michael mentioned, I am working as a climate advisor in the climate agency in the city of Oslo. And the last year, I have been working with a project to develop a guideline for other municipalities and regions on how to make and develop climate budgets. Today, I will talk about how we have developed the climate budget as an efficient governance system in Oslo. And I will also give you some advice on how you can develop your own climate budgets. So then you can go to the next slide. Yes, so Oslo has implemented one of the most ambitious climate targets of any capital city in the world. We strongly believe that the emission reductions are not to be implemented somewhere else or at another time and by somebody else. We want to take responsibility now. And our goals are in line with the Paris Agreement. So the goal is that we want to, or we shall, reduce climate gases, the direct greenhouse gases, by 95% by 2030. In other words, in less than 10 years, we will be practically a zero-emission city. Even if Oslo reaches its zero-emission goal, the climate will continue to change due to the amount of CO2 already in the atmosphere. And therefore, we need to adapt to present and future hazards. Hence, the target of Oslo also is to become a climate resilient city. Then you can take the next slide. Here is the Opera House in Oslo. And one of the key challenges for reaching the Paris Agreement is the fragmentation of responsibilities between global, national, and local level. In addition, there are often internal division within administrations between those who think money and those who think emissions. In Oslo, we have taken measures to avoid this fragmentation, and we have introduced climate budgets, whereby we seek to count carbon the way we count money. Solving the climate challenge requires new skill sets in public administration. We cannot expect to deal efficiently with this issue without adjusting our organization. So we have established this climate agency where I work, and this climate agency is set up to provide technical support and policy advice on climate measures to the city government and to other city agencies. We are also collaborating with the private sector, research institutions, and NGOs. The next slide. And the key tool to organize our climate work is the climate budget. It's a tool to operationalize our climate goals and the climate strategy on an annual basis. Oslo was, as far as we know, the first city in the world to introduce a climate budget. We used it for the first time in 2017, and we now just finished our 5th climate budget for 2021. The climate budget is fully integrated in the financial budget process. We are budgeting towards the future by identifying the measures and instruments needed to reach our targets. The emission impact of the measure is estimated, and the responsible unit for the implementation is identified. The budget clearly states what has to be done, by whom, when, and at what cost. I want to emphasize that a climate budget can be developed in many forms, and today I will focus on how we have solved this in Oslo. This is pioneering work, and we are continuously working to improve the methodology and as we gain more experience and knowledge. Then we can take the next slide. And actually you can just skip this one and I go straight to the next. Yes. So the first step in developing a climate budget is to define the boundaries for the system boundaries for the budget. There are many ways to do this. You can, for example, develop a budget for the city administration, or the city as a geographical unit, or the municipality. And it all depends on what data, knowledge, and resources you have available. Oslo's measures address both our direct emissions and our entire footprint, the direct and the indirect emissions, like scope 1 to 3. With that said, it's important to keep them separate in measurements and accounting. Therefore, in the climate budget, we only focus on direct emissions that we can account. So the climate budget in Oslo covers emissions from the city of Oslo as a geographical area. Thus, not only emissions from the city administration. We have found out that less than 10% of the total emissions in Oslo are a result of the city administration. The climate budget, it contains a combination of national, regional, and local measures, and also a combination of quantified and non-quantified measures. Then we can take the next one. So before you develop a climate budget, you have to know the historical greenhouse gas emissions of your municipality. Here you can see the historical greenhouse gas emissions for Oslo, developed by the Norwegian Environment Agency. We are happy they are developing statistics for all municipalities in Norway with the same methodology as the greenhouse gas inventory, the EPCC 2006 guidelines. So then the next one. So now you know your historical data, and then you can set up a climate budget. This is the framework for Oslo's climate budget in 2021. The green line shows the historical statistics, and the green dotted line shows a projection of emissions in Oslo. We have developed this projection to look and have an overview of what will happen if you just do like business as usual. The red dots are our climate goals, and the yellow line shows our annual targets. The projection very clearly demonstrates that business as usual will not lead us to the ambitious targets, and that we have to do more, and we have to, it needs extra efforts and actions. So the next one. Therefore, we have to implement measures to reach our goals. For each annual budget, the measures are analyzed towards a target year. The methodology differs depending on available data, knowledge of the measure, and developments in the sector. It is important to keep in mind that not all measures can be quantified, and that the effect cannot always be isolated to one measure or instrument. We have 14 quantified measures in our budget for 2021, and also a high number of measures not quantified. The toolbox for our mitigation actions is a mixture of national, regional, and local instruments. The next one. So here is the climate budget for Oslo in 2021. The light green dotted line shows the result of all the measures in the budget. As you can see, we will achieve a reduction in emissions of 30% by 2023. That's a lot, but it's still a way to go to reach our target of 52%. So more actions are needed, and it's this budget shows our the decision makers that they have to do more. Okay, then we can take the next one. So how to develop a climate budget? Then you go to the next. In Oslo, I won't go through this one, but you will have the slides afterwards. So I just tell you that in Oslo, the climate budget process is managed by the city finance department and in close cooperation with the environment and transport department. However, all the departments are encouraged to propose measures in the budget and to be responsible entities for implementation. And also the climate agency, we provide expert advice on the climate budget. We also provide advice and knowledge when it comes to implementing and reporting on the measures in the climate budget. And the next one. And I will not go through this one either, but this is the budgeting. You can take back. It's the budgeting cycle in Oslo. And the climate budget is published and decided upon as an integral part of the annual budget. So the same budget logic applies to the climate budget as to the financial budget. You cannot decide to use more than you have available. Okay, the next one.
You have 2 minutes left, Astrid.
Yes, I think that's, yes, it's good. A factor that makes the climate budget as an efficient governance system is that the units that are responsible for the measures have to report on result indicators 3 times a year. In that way, we can follow up all the measures and adjust the course if we see that some measures or instruments don't deliver the assumed emission reductions. And we also make this climate barometer where we have 17 indicators to track the trends in the emissions in our city. Then you can take the next one, which is the last one actually. Here are some lessons learned, some concluding points. And I won't go through this either, but I want to add something. And as Pauliina emphasized in her presentation, cooperation is an important key to success. And climate networks are important, both national and as well as international. Our experience is that as long as we are transparent, climate politics can be directed through the climate budget. We will not have all the answers, but we will be able to give advice to our decision makers with greater certainty with this climate budget. And to the point of Pauliina, I also want to emphasize the importance of the Sustainable Development Goal 17. Collaboration is a key to success. Collaboration within the city administration and with other cities and municipalities will give added value to the work. Yes, so, and also I have to say that we don't use either carrots or sticks, but we use both in our city. Most what you would call sticks, I think, but as Ari does in Ikunta, we communicate all the positive effects of the climate measures for the environment, for human health, and also for the city as a green city for people. And with that, I want to sum up with this picture. This is before Corona, as you see. So a lot of people enjoying the sun at the harbor in Oslo. And with that, I say thank you for the attention.
Thank you so much, Astrid. I saw that in one of your graphs, the transport was a really big chunk. So that was interesting to see when we look back to our own little Menti here earlier. So there's a lot of focus on transport issues. Also, what we could see from your graphs was that there's a big gap. So will you make it in your targets? I mean,
we have to make it. We have this goal on, like, we are going to be a zero emission city in 2030. It's just 10 years. So we have a hard work to do, but I think we will make it. There's the politicians and also the people in the city are eager to reach the goal. So I think it's we will manage.
Well, that's good to know. Now, you also mentioned this collaboration as key, and cooperation is the way to success. And I just need to emphasize, we didn't tell all of our speakers to say this, because of course these events are about networking and learning from each other, but it's great to hear that you all emphasize this. But in your work with, you worked, I think, with 6 or 7 different regions or municipalities in Norway. What has been your experience in this learning process? What has been difficult for them? What has been most difficult, and has something been easy in learning to use your tools and the climate budget?
Yeah, we have been following, as you said, 6 different municipalities and regions the last year, and all of them they are in different size. And several of the municipalities find it hard to know how much resources it requires to develop and follow up a climate budget. There's unfortunately not an answer to this question. It depends on the size of the municipality. But as I said earlier, solving the climate challenge requires new skill sets in public administration. You cannot expect to deal efficiently with this issue without adjusting our organization and put more resources in solving this problem. So
you need to be flexible and adapt. It's not
you
business
need
as
to be
usual.
flexible and adapt and put some more resources in the climate work.
We have a question for you also from the public, from the listeners or viewers, I should say. Dorothy Dankel here asks if there is a role for private consultants and or publicly funded academic institutions in getting the right information on emissions and other data. Is there a role for universities? So you mentioned, of course, indicators and measurements and so on. So who are your partners in developing these tools? To develop the statistics, we have this environment department in the National Environment Department, who make statistics for all municipalities in Norway. So we use that statistics, and it's based on the same methodology as the greenhouse gas inventory. So you work with the government mainly? Yes, like to have the statistics, we do that, but for all the measurements, it's we work with all parts of the city. Actually, it's on the national level, and it's also with the people in the city, and our tools as an administration, and yes. Well, we'll have it all of you out there watching us now. You'll have a chance, or those of you who want, will have a chance to talk to Astrid later on in the mingle, which is actually quite soon, in 20 minutes. We're running a little behind slightly here, but you all have so much to say. So I think it's been 3 great presentations. Let's take one final quick Menti related to your presentation, Astrid, before we go to the panel. And this is just to hear if anyone else out there is working already with these types of climate budgets that you mentioned, or indeed other kinds of tools. Just so we know that what you have ahead of you, Astrid, it seems like you have a lot of work lined up. So some people are planning, but mostly no. So you're really a first mover here, from what we can see. You have to make a guideline, international guideline, I think. Yes, I think so. And then maybe you'll need universities and other consultants, or maybe you'll need to apply to the Nordic Council of Ministers for money. Then we can, of course, give you some tips on that. Okay, well, thank you so much to all 3 of you. We would like to move on to the panel now. So I think we will invite back Ari and Pauliina. Please turn on your cameras and microphones again. Are you back? Yes,
I think so.
Yes, now we lost Astrid, or are you still there? Astrid, just stay with us for the panel. Please turn on your camera again. Yes, okay. So now we heard a lot about what can be done at the local level, but if we move back a little bit, remember at the beginning I was reading through the goals in SDG13 on climate action, and they were all very much global and focusing on the national level, and the local level was almost sort of a parenthesis back there with marginalized societies, which is kind of interesting in a way. So I guess there was some lobbying should have been done there. But what can you actually do at the local level? That's one thing that I've been wondering all through. I mean, this is a global problem. A lot of these issues are so difficult to grapple with. So how do you keep up hope, and how do you keep moving on in a way when it sometimes maybe seems a little overwhelming? Can Ari, what are your thoughts on that? You were the big motivator with your local citizens. Have you ever had any doubts as to, how does it make enough of a difference?
Yes, of course there are doubts, and there are many people also here who cannot, who do not believe or want to believe or whatever to this global change. But one of my messages is that the change is good. You can do the change the way the benefits goes to our community. For example, if you want to drive a regular diesel car, for example, you can think that when you buy diesel, the 99.9% of that money goes to someplace else. If you have, for example, electric car, 100% of that money goes to local and regional companies. So I have to admit that money is a good motivator.
So it's about
when you change the message to that language, it is more acceptable than you are speaking about CO2s or something like that.
So to be very concrete and to inspire. Also, it's a question of ownership, I suppose, that people feel that this is actually this positive feedback loop, that this is something that comes back to me. This is not something abstract out there. This is something that actually concerns my life. Also, Astrid, I was wondering, when we looked at our little Menti here about what sectors to work with, as I said, transportation came out very prominently. Also, green public procurement. What would you say? What has the biggest impact when you work with climate action at the local level? Astrid?
Can you just? I'm sorry, but my the sound didn't. But now it's back. Can you?
Yes, I'll try again. We had this mention earlier when we asked people what policy areas to focus on, and we had transportation coming out on top, and then we had green public procurement, but also citizen engagement and motivation. What would you say from your perspective? Where do you get most bang for the buck when you work with climate action at the local level?
Yeah, it's different sectors actually, but if you look at the direct emissions, I think it's the transportation you have to work with, and there you also have like easy measures too. You can have goals to have zero emission or electrical cars in the city's administration, and you can also have a goal to make all the vehicle in the public transportation electric, and yeah. So there is different, and also you can have presuming to have electric buildings, and when you are building up the city.
Yeah, so energy efficiency and better required standards basically, and of course it varies from country to country what is governed at the local level and what's governed at the national level. So there are differences there, but it sounds like transport is one area, building energy efficiency another area,
and zero emission building and construction sites.
Yes. Also, as I said in the beginning, participants in the webinar are at many different levels. Some have just started working with SDGs, some are quite advanced. Pauliina, you mentioned working at with different kinds of organizations and networks and so on. How do you address this? How do you address this how do you meet people where they are, so to speak? What do you do to make sure that you can design your training and so on to meet people, to meet their needs, basically, because people are at such different levels.
Yeah.
Different levels.
Yeah. Well, at least specifically with our new training program, we didn't make we made such general structure, but that otherwise, when the municipalities applied for the training program, they described what they want and what are their challenges and what they want. And then I've been phone calling everyone, well, having Teams online meetings with all of them, and actually discussing the whole, like the proposals, their situation. And now we're actually building the training now. So yes, because otherwise we end up having general models, and they might help someone. But if we think about that, they are really in different situations, they need different kind of tools as well and support. But it's also good to sort of listen to them. What are the other, like how we can promote the peer learning? It's not how we can teach or train, it's how they can learn from each other, and how we can facilitate the peer learning. What are the like we have a city that has a lot of industry, and they are worried about the how the industry will react if the city will set really ambitious climate targets. So we are trying to connect them with the other cities or other municipalities that have the similar, who are tackled with the similar questions. Mm. So that I think we need really this kind of work a lot. So in order to sort of match the interests as well.
So to meet people where they are, and also as you mentioned, Astrid, it's very important when you work with your budgets, and so to be very specific and to be very who does what and what does it cost, and so transparency and some of all these things that we pride ourselves at least in the Nordic region, that we're really good at, that we're in this together. Another thing I was wondering about, we have you, Astrid, from Oslo, we have you, Ari, from E. What about the urban-rural divide? Is that a challenge, or is it a potential? Can we learn from each other? I mean, you deal with different issues, but could we also see that as a potential strength? I don't know what you think about that, Ari. Have you ever seen that do you see that as a problem, the urban-rural divide, or do you see that as an opportunity?
Okay, please, Astrid, you first.
Astrid, go ahead.
It's a good question. I don't think it's a problem. It's more like something we can learn from each other, like all the good communication work that Ari does in Ikunta is it's really something to learn from. And in Oslo, we are trying to do the same, like communicate all the positive effects of the climate work we do, and to see what Ari does in Ikunta is really interesting, and we could actually learn a lot from that.
Yes,
for example, this climate budget is something which in which we can learn from Oslo, or in Finland there's a city of Tampere who's also tried that in their planning process. We in town like E, we don't have that kind of resources in many cases. So I think we need people like Pauliina and others in the association, or that who can, how would I say, they can take the knowledge and think how we can use that knowledge in our circumstances. But still the how would I say, the problems or the questions are the same in rural areas and also in urban areas. The solutions can be different. As I mentioned, the question of public transportation and the population density. So we need to find the solutions that are suitable for us, because the similar way as they think in city of Oslo, for example, is not okay for us. But still there is a common problem or common issue, how to decrease the use of energy or the use of fossil fuels in transportation.
Yeah, so we're in it together. Just a final question before we round up, and I would like to invite Nora back here. Today we focused on climate issues and climate action. Have any of you worked with other SDGs? I know we talked a little bit about circular economy, Ari, to example, but that's a big issue in bioeconomy also in Finland. But do you what apart from climate, what are you otherwise focusing on?
We have also accepted circular economy program. We have 3 topics: waste management, which is quite normal circular economy, and then material reuse. We, as a public organization, we can make procurement guidelines that boost the use of reused or recycled material. That's a very interesting point, and we are in the beginning, in the early phase of that. And third is shared economy. As I mentioned, these shared cars, for example. So sharing should be a common practice in the future in many ways. So these are the tools, because normal or regular waste management is not so easy to organize in rural areas, but you can invent other ways to boost circular economy.
So we won't have much time anymore. Thank you for that, Ari, and thank you for pointing to other sectors to work in. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, we will have a whole series of webinars focusing on the different SDGs. So this was just the first one. And Nora will say a little more about that. But before I give the word to Nora, let me just remind you about the Mingle that is coming up after we finish in a few minutes. So you will see the links in the chat. And you can go to, there's a room for each of the speakers. So you can go there and ask them questions directly. Also, please, we will send you a follow-up mail, please send us feedback or provide it now in the chat or in the wherever. But also you can write us back and tell us what you think about the event, or if you have suggestions for other things to do. As I said, we have 5 more webinars coming up, so it'll be great to have some feedback and interaction with you. But that being said, thank you to our 3 speakers, and thank you to all of you who have been listening in. Nora, you will have a few final famous words.
Thank you, Michael, for the nice moderation. Thank you to Pauliina, to Ari, and to Astrid for really exciting presentations. I learned a lot, and I hope also you from the audience did. I thought it was very interesting, for example, to hear from you, Pauliina, how you organize the work and the coaching that you're offering. I think that might be quite interesting for other municipalities in Finland to go down that way. And I thought it was very interesting also to hear from you, Ari, so many concrete examples of what you can do even in a small municipality with not even 10,000 inhabitants, how far you can actually go. I thought that was really nice, and for sure many things that we can take away from that and learn from. And I thought also this a bit more technical to the climate budgets from Astrid, that was really interesting, and I think also really nicely presented. And I hope that many of you in the audience also thought that was useful, perhaps something that you can look further into or also learn from Astrid and contact Astrid to discuss this further. We have recorded the event, as Michael said, and you will get, I think, tomorrow by email a link. So if you want to look at some slides again, or if you want to listen again to the panel discussion, you can do that. You can also share the link with your colleagues if you think someone else should take note of this event. And then, of course, bring your questions further now and keep discussing with our speakers in the digital meeting rooms. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed the seminar, and we would be happy to welcome you again next week. Then we will have digitalization on the agenda, and we want to discuss how you can use digital solutions to potentially increase access to public services, especially in rural areas. And we will have speakers from Hela Sverige ska leva, an organization that represents rural areas. In Sweden, we will also hear from a really interesting mobility app from Denmark, and we will hear how digital solutions are being used in healthcare in Västerbotten. And then our colleague Linda Randall, our expert in digitalization here at Nordregio, she will also be there and share some insights from her research into this topic. So I hope that sounds interesting to you and that you join again for the next time. And so far, I thank you for your attention, and thanks again to the speakers and to you, Michael.
Thank you. And stay with us for the mingle and get some direct interaction with our speakers. Thank you so much for joining in.
Thank you.